Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson. Tonight, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, and CNN's New York offices all received what appear to be pipe bombs in the mail this morning. That news sparked a massive investigation into the obvious question: who sent these explosives and why? None of the devices exploded or harmed anyone. Details remain sparse, but Fox's Trace Gallagher has been covering this story from the very beginning and joins us with the very latest. Trace?
And Tucker, a law enforcement source tells us the choice of pipe bombs in packages is unusual because there's no easy or obvious method of detonation. But authorities also say that while these pipe bombs were rudimentary, they appear to be functional, and at least one contained projectiles, including shards of glass, to inflict as much damage as possible. The FBI says the packages were mailed in manila envelopes with computer-printed address labels, and they all had 6 forever stamps on them. Those are stamps that can be used anytime, regardless of price changes. And all of the devices had a return address of Florida Congresswoman and former DNC Chair Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Sources also tell us there is strong evidence that these attempted attacks are the work of one group or individual. Over the past 2 days, there have been 10 reports of suspicious packages. 4 have been ruled out. 1 is still being investigated, and 5 have now been confirmed, including to the Clintons, the Obamas, billionaire liberal donor George Soros, former Attorney General Eric Holder, and former CIA Director John Brennan. Brennan's envelope was delivered to CNN. And New York City Police Commissioner James O'Neill says investigators are reviewing security video to see if they can identify the courier who delivered the CNN package. Today, President Trump condemned what he called acts of political violence, but Democratic leaders Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer said, quoting, President Trump's words ring hollow until he reverses his statements that condone acts of violence. Of course, the GOP has blamed Democrats for inciting numerous acts of violence against Republicans. The FBI, by the way, warns more packages could be out there. Tucker.
Trace Gallagher, thanks for that. Well, those pipe bombs, of course, are one of but many examples of attempted and actual political violence we've seen over the past few years. One of the most notable was an attempted massacre at a congressional baseball practice in the summer of 2017. Congressman Steve Scalise of Louisiana was gravely wounded in that shooting. In response to the pipe bomb mailings today, he tweeted this, quote, "These attempted attacks that have been made are beyond criminal. They are acts of pure terror. Violence and terror have no place in our politics or anywhere else in our society." Congressman Steve Scalise joins us tonight. Congressman, thanks very much for coming on. So what was your first reaction when you saw this news today?
Well, Tucker, it's anger. This isn't the way that we should expect America to be turning. I mean, you're seeing more and more of this, and clearly you're seeing it on both sides. We all need to be calling it out. Obviously, we need to find out what happened, and the FBI is in the process of doing it. I feel very confident that our law enforcement officials are ultimately going to find out who did this, and if it's one or multiple people, to bring them to justice and do it as swiftly as possible.
So the president condemned these acts and was immediately rebuked by the Democratic Party for condemning the acts not quite enough. What do you make of that?
I thought that was a mistake on their part to criticize the president. I think it was important that the president did come out with his statement the way he did, strongly. I heard silence a lot of times when Republicans were under attack from Democrat leaders. We all should be calling this out. When a Republican or Democrat is under attack, first of all, we don't even know who did it. We should be trying to find out who did it, but we should be criticizing the act, whether it's a Republican or Democrat. Some people only criticize when it's a Democrat under attack. And the media, by the way, was under attack, too, and there's no place for that either.
How do we de-escalate this? Things seem to be moving in a direction that's ominous. And so what do our leaders need to do, to the extent they have control, to pull us back?
I think the most important thing is to get back to what made this country great. Our founders didn't set up some kind of system where everybody had to think the same way. In fact, they challenged their government, and they wanted a system where individual people can speak their views and even speak out against their government, and they put the First Amendment ultimately in the Constitution to ensure that right. But the difference is we all have our disagreements. You should never make those personal, and you should never think that violence is a way to settle our political differences. We settle them at the ballot box. We have an election in 13 days. That's where we settle our differences. Violence is never an answer to somebody's political disagreement with somebody else.
It's a wise and interesting point you make. So you're saying that people feel less free to express their opinions now than they have in previous generations, and that's part of the reason things are so volatile?
Well, when somebody tries to use threats or intimidation, it's like the schoolyard bully. If they don't want to confront their own demons, they try to threaten you and scare you away from just living your everyday life. And that's not who we are as Americans. You saw it after September 11th, when our very way of life was under attack by people who had a totally different viewpoint of America and what it stands for. And we came together as a country and we said, we're not going to back down. We're not going to change who we are. And we shouldn't do it here either. But we should be equally vigilant, Republican and Democrat, no matter who is under attack, that it's wrong for whoever did the attack. Let's find out the details. Don't try to deflect blame and try to blame somebody else who had nothing to do with this. Let's actually go after the people who did it. That's what we should do in coming together as Americans. And again, it's not about philosophy. I'm a conservative. I have liberal friends. I have disagreements with them, but I don't make it personal. And none of us should make it personal. We should want to find out who did it. Let's get the facts. Don't go trying to blame people that had nothing to do with this. Let's all be focused on coming together and finding out who did it and bringing them to justice.
Coming from a man who is very close to being murdered for his political beliefs, your words carry weight on that for sure. Congressman, thank you.
Always great to be with you, Tucker.